This is a very bad spot.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the September 9th, 2009 Zoning Commission meeting. Let the record show that all members are present. This time I'd like to open up the floor for public comment period. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak on any item not on the agenda, please come forward and you'll have 3 minutes. No one wishing to come forward. Public comment period is closed. Acceptance of the minutes from the August 12th, 2009 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Steve Barrow, seconded by Commissioner Marchand. Any opposition? Motion carries. Item number 5, public hearing for the Historical Site Overlay Zone, Zoning Review ID 2028.09, Track 1A for Investment Ascension Properties, LLC.
You want to sign in?
Yes,
No,
sir.
you don't have to.
No, just, no.
I'm Danny Watts, representing.
Make sure you speak into the mic, please.
I'm Danny Watts, representing Mr. Brent Dufresne, who was here the 8th of July.
You're gonna have to.
Still not loud enough?
Yeah.
Does it extend any?
There, okay. It's just better for the
Okay. I'm Danny Watts. Can you hear me?
okay.
I'm representing Mr. Brent Dufresne, who was here for the July 8th meeting regarding the permit for the temporary modular bank facility at Airline in 73, which was applied for in 06, granted in 07. I reviewed the videotape of the July 8 meeting, in which there was basically no answer for why Mr. Dufresne failed to communicate despite the parish's letters, phone calls, multiple attempts, and as I indicated in my letter, I don't understand why he didn't, neither does he, aside from possibly being ill. We apologize for that. Per that meeting, I've resubmitted application for a 2-year permit to extend the use of the modular building until, very importantly, until the economy approves and he can build his permanent structure. And if necessary, we would accept 18 months.
Okay. Questions, comments?
I've got a couple of questions. When was the Prairieville branch shut down?
June 30th.
June
of this year.
30th. Okay, then I'd like Mr. Brandt to explain to this commission why he told us in the July meeting that the branch was not shut down. They didn't have plans to shut it down.
I don't remember saying.
Well, it's on tape, sir. In fact, Mr. Wells here was asking you, this was during the conversation pertaining to the federal documentation. I was trying to get some verification, trying to get you to verify some of what you had been telling us. And Mr. Wells asked you a question. So they're telling you to close the bank. And you replied, no, 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 nothing like that.
No, they didn't tell me.
Now-
We made the decision.
no,
It was already closed.
It was already closed, sir. You left this commission believing that that branch was opened.
No, that wasn't the intent. The intent was, I didn't get the replay of the minutes, so maybe I should have looked at it before I came here. The question came about, is the federal government stopping us from building? And I said they weren't giving us permission to build, but they didn't tell us to close the building. We decided to market it out of our LaPlace office. I'm sorry if that misled you, but that totally was not the intent to say that the building was open at that time, because we had relocated most of the staff. to
Well,
the
Ms.
boothie on LaPlace.
Slyman
I'm
even
sorry
voiced
for-
her concerns of shutting down
And
a
laying
business or
people-
shutting
laying
down a branch, and you let it go right by.
I totally missed that. but
So
that
the
was not
commission was left
intent.
with the impression that the branch was operating, which it was not operating. And, I mean,
No, that
you know,
was-
since this has come up, in 2005, your proposal was placed in a packet, submitted to the commissioners. We get to the meeting, there's a revised proposal in front of us. The commission goes ahead and accepts your revised proposal. 2006, you come asking for a variance on the building. You want to put a temporary building in. In 2000, at that meeting, I explained to the commissioners that was not the intent of the ordinance to allow temporary buildings, but you got your variance. At the same time, Mr. Watts, you promised this commission that the facade of that building would be the same as in the historical site.
Would you clear that up? I promised that the facade of the temporary building would be what?
If you would like to, I'll let you clear it up.
I'll clear it up. I watched the video from July 12, 2006. At that time, Mr. Watts, you stated, and y'all showed a picture that the modular building would be similar to the Carroll residence. It would have a front porch across it. It never did. Also, at that meeting, Sharon, which represented the bank, and she did not state her last name, said that y'all would also, not only in addition to the facade, she stated it as well, that y'all would put in landscaping and would leave the natural tree line, because Mr. Commissioner Dumas brought up about the tree line, that the natural tree line would stay in place and that y'all would landscape 5 feet out from the tree line. None of that happened. There's an awning off of the bank. So the picture that was shown of the modular building is not correct to what y'all place there. The landscaping was never done. I mean, I took several notes of what you said, Mr. Watts, and what Susan said. And what y'all presented to the commission in July the 12th of 2006 is not what you delivered.
With respect to what I said and what is there today, it was based on what Sharon told me as my client. It's not my call architecturally or otherwise as to what they'll do. And so what she told me she would do is what they told me will do, is all my clients will do. I can't tell them what to do. I tell them what I'm told to do, and so I apologize if they have not done that.
Well, I guess, to the point of, it's quite obvious that the bank has done absolutely nothing that they said they would do. And here it is over 2 years later, because the motion that Commissioner Dumas made was that it would be a maximum of 2 years from the date of the permit that the modular building could stay there.
Correct.
And it was seconded by Mike Bartwell.
There have been too many inconsistencies with this one project. And right now, I really can't support any request for any extensions, any variances, anything, because so far it hasn't been proven to me that you're going to do what you say you're going to do.
Would a porch solve this matter, or at least relieve some concern about that issue? I say this because there's 6 figures invested in that building, not to mention site improvements or other things. And
Well,
if,
Not much in site improvements.
well, with respect to landscaping, that may be the case, so there's some in front of the building. Site improvements also include concrete, including additional drives and parking beyond what serves that
But
building.
that's not landscaping, though.
I didn't
the
say it was
driveways
landscaping.
aren't
I didn't say it was, sir. I said it was site improvements.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I've got a question. We keep talking about First National Bank, and last time we were told that federal regulators kind of didn't want you to do that, but yet what's coming before us is Investment Ascension Properties. That's not First National Bank USA.
We bought it in that name, and it was taken in the day it was bought into First National Bank.
Well, then, why are y'all still filing it under Investment Ascension Properties LLC with the Secretary of State?
It's a subsidiary of the bank. It's a whole, the bank owns the property 100%. We show it on our balance sheet.
Well, not according to this.
Could you let me
Sure.
send that
It's
to me?
the
I'll-
Secretary of State's website. Mr. Mendoza filed this February 13th, 2009, that he was the agent and also the manager of that property out there.
He works for me. The bank
Well,
owns,
he- I mean, he
the bank,
also-
in other words, a holding company, First St. Charles Bank Shares, is the sole owner of the bank, and First St. Charles Holding owns the property also. So it's owned by itself. The bank does own it. We paid for it. Okay.
What you're saying is it's a wholly held subsidiary of the bank.
Yeah. The buildings are wholly owned by the banks.
Well, since you brought up the alternative, let me respond to that. I think that what you're hearing from the commission and the frustration that you're hearing from the commission is not necessarily in opposition to what's out there, but the fact that we haven't complied even with the initial commitments that the bank made. I mean, we have to go in good faith that the folks that were here and showed up here the first time made a lot of commitments as to landscaping and what the building was going to look like and all that stuff. And those were things that were material to the commission making the decisions that it made at that time. You know, for a variety of reasons, including our inability to enforce things, you know, which we're getting better and better at every day, you know, those things went by the wayside. You know, we viewed them as conditions, we viewed them as requirements of the approval, and none of them were met. Since then, the time lapsed. You know, the approval has lapsed, and now you're here before us to get a new approval, and you know, the same issues are here. What assurances are there that we're going to perform, you know, to the letter?
That's a good question. If you would allow me, and maybe we can't, the 06 or 05 minutes videos, I would love to watch. I didn't know they were there. I only looked at this one because the link was sent to me. Part of, and maybe I'm misunderstanding this, we did the Historic Site Overlay District first while the property was under contract in 05. It was the first case application as the ordinance was adopted, I think a month before we went into contract, and that delayed our contract. That's neither here nor there with respect to you. The ordinance, part of what we did was there was a paragraph or two about buffering and landscaping and using the natural tree line, which still is there. Now, as the commissioner mentioned, that is there not 5 feet of landscaping that was there, that may be the case. Part of what we said, or they said, told me, and I said it for them, that they would do was the landscaping for the final project, which included the buffer zone for the whole of the property, and then we had to come back for this temporary building after the sale. And if that had separate landscape things, I was told that's what they would do. As I recall, which is why I'd like to review that tape, is with respect to the porch, Sharon, at one of the sites, wherever they bought this building from, had different facades, different structures, and that was one as an example. She said, Danny, this is an example of what we can do. We can do this, we can do that. I don't recall, honestly, that we specifically promised that it will have a porch. Part of that paragraph does mention that they would do their best to make, what we were referring more, though, we thought it was more important, was the permanent structure, not the temporary, was that it would architecturally try to comply with the Carroll property. And I think, if I recall properly, that paragraph attachment also stated that they would, if we could, send the architects out to that property to try to comply with that. And I think we may have more emphasis on the permanent structure than the temporary.
That's not true.
Well, I can tell you that we were only viewing the temporary structure. We were not at the time looking at the permanent structure because, you know, we weren't, you know, that wasn't part of that wasn't the request. The request was for approval of the.
And that may be, my point is my recollection.
Well, the reason that that was the issue, a temporary structure. And if you look at the tape from the 2006 meeting, you presented a sample. And you yourself said, oh, this is a better example of what we want to do rather than what's in your packet. And what you've put out there looks nothing like, and it doesn't even come close to what you presented to us.
Do you have that by chance?
Sure.
I don't have the sample that you
I don't have
gave
the
us. You
sample.
put it up on that screen right there and showed us.
You need to read this.
That's the paragraph I was referring to a moment ago.
Yeah, and here's the sample of what you have. Your building looks nothing like it.
Will you grant me a moment to read this?
Well, actually, what I'd like to do is open for public hearing while you may have a seat and review that, if you don't mind. Take advantage of some, give you some time. At this time, I'd like to open up the floor for public hearing. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak in this matter, please come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. No one wishing to come forward, public hearing is closed. And we'll allow you time to review that and then respond.
You're correct that that paragraph is specific to and germane to the temporary structure. That's the information I was given. That picture is a picture I recall. That's why I asked if a porch might would help. As you indicated, Mr. Dumas, about enforcement, I understand that is an issue. I will tell you in my conversations with Sharon in both applications for the Historic Site Overlay District and then for the variance for the temporary structure, it's not that specific. I don't mean that as an insult to anybody, but I also mean it also it's kind of hard for the applicant to understand exactly what that means. Having said that, I was given that picture as a sample, and it says clearly on that page, a sample, that I can see that led you to believe it was exactly what they would do. It says a sample. Sharon told me that was an example of what we could do. The Penn Warren House, it was my recollection that with respect to architecture, would apply more to the permanent structure when it was built. We assume that it would be built, but exactly.
Say that.
The paragraph says that, exactly. So I apologize.
All
Well,
right, we got some.
Well, considering what we've gone through with this one issue, I'm going to make a motion to deny the request based on the fact that it's not consistent with the intent of the ordinance. I'm also going to give you a deadline of September 30th to have the temporary building removed. And as of October 1st, I'd like for Mr. Ricky Compton and either Mr. Lance Brock or Mr. Richard Throckmorton to go out there and see if the building has been removed. And if it hasn't been removed, to begin applying any fines or penalties in this case. And that's my motion.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, just hang on, let me just.
Second.
Okay. Have a motion to deny by Michael Marchand, seconded by Commissioner Nance. Discussion.
I don't think we finished our discussion, but I'm opposed to the motion.
I'll oppose too.
Okay. You have a comment, sir? Yes.
Yes, sir. We didn't get a permit from the highway department until,
Make sure you speak in the mic. So
we didn't get a permit from the highway department. The highway department had a big issue with the ditch they had on the side of the road, and we put the culverts in, as you noticed, and the highway department changed their plans, and we had to move the culverts higher up, and then it was blocking further down. So we didn't move into the building till November '07. And so November '09 would be 2 years that we'd be there. And we do have plans for the building, not to let out on bid, but the whole design, waiting for the economy to approve. We could easily put that canopy that's on the building. That, I was too sick at this time. Somebody else was handling all of this, Sharon, and this gentleman were handling all of that for the temporary building, but the porch is there. We just have to put a canopy that'll comply exactly like that picture that was given you. But for me to move this off by the end of September, I've got to find and get a permit as to where I'm gonna put it and get a contractor to move it off. You know,
Mr.
it'd be a difficult compliance to move in that
Okay.
fast.
Mr.
I
Dufresne,
think-
you've had since May 10th. That's when the term of the variance expired. You've had over 90 days.
Okay, could you give me
And
to,
this commission never, when you came here in July, this commission never gave you any assurances that, if you submitted another proposal, that we would accept your proposal. So you've had all the time in the world to make arrangements to have this building moved. At the same time, we've got a business that you're not operating. Also, your original proposal, the one the commission did accept in 2005, is still active. My motion is to have you move your temporary building.
could you give me more time to move?
No, sir, I'm not going to do it. You've already had more time than
That's
is
the motion.
necessary.
We'll vote on the motion.
I've made my motion. I'm not rescinding it.
Sir, to address your permitting issue, Mr. Commissioner Dumas's motion in '06, it was 2 years from the date of your building permit. Had nothing to do with the highway, and that was issued on May the 10th of 2007. And also, Sharon, which was your representative from the bank, and I'll quote what she said. She said, the modular building will have a front porch like the Carroll's home. Now, I visited the Carroll's home on many a conversation since they've owned it and when A.J. Lusto owned it. And, sir, there's nothing like it. So, she represented you. She also said that the architect that you wanted to use were busy, and you said that as well. But also she said it would probably take less than 2 years for the permanent structure to be built. If you view it, it says that the architect, she said that the architect said it would take 9 to 14 months after the bids came in to build the bank. Now, if y'all would have done what y'all agreed to do in the meeting, the bank would have been built before the recession hit.
Well, the recession started long before it was.
Sir, you had already been under construction.
But we didn't even address, this commission was so focused on shutting them down, we didn't even address the reason they're here tonight. We asked them to come back with a plan. The last time they came before us, we said, give us a plan. I didn't hear a single person discuss what was their plan. Somebody just wanted to shut them down.
No, we want the
Okay, all right.
building
Wait, wait.
moved.
Okay. So I think we've had enough discussion. Let's vote on the
I agree
motion.
with you.
And so, okay.
Would you take a roll?
Yeah, I haven't asked for the vote yet. All right. I have a motion on the floor to deny the request for the extension by Michael Marchand, seconded by Bob Nance. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
3 here. All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Denies. So that's 4 to 3. Motion carries. All right.
No, could we,
So your motion, as it stands right now, is
okay,
to
just, could we,
evacuate and,
but to
Pull it.
move, this is a steel
well, and I
frame.
think that's probably more of an issue with staff. If it's physically impossible, that's something you'll have to address with the
See
staff.
if we can get a little bit more time, it's a,
And here again, I would just recommend you discuss that with staff
okay.
and get logistics, all right? Wait, I can't hear. All right. Item number 6, zoning subcommittee report.
We have 2 items that we'd like to request a public hearing next month. One of them is the setbacks, which you heard about during the planning commission, that we've been working very closely with the planning subcommittee. In order to address the setback issue, we have to address it in both codes, both ordinances. So respectfully ask that we have a public hearing next month to address this in conjunction with the planning commission. And I don't know if it's appropriate or not legal, but maybe to facilitate things for the public, maybe we can have a joint public hearing to address both. Is that possible?
A joint
the setback issues which are addressed in both in the development code and in the subdivision regulations.
I think it'd be appropriate if you advertise it that way.
Okay. So I would ask, I need a
Put it
motion.
on for public hearing.
Need a
Did you make the
second.
motion, or-
I need to make,
Who made the motion?
I made the motion.
All right, thank you. Motion by
Right.
Commissioner Slyman to hold a public hearing next month, a joint public hearing meeting with the Zoning and Planning Commission to discuss the setbacks, seconded by Commissioner Barre. Any opposition? Motion carries.
the second item is industrial definitions, and basically, Ricky, help me out here, but basically in the drainage ordinance, there's an exemption for industrial uses. But there's a lot of different types of industrial uses, some of which obviously weren't intended to be exempt, and Ricky, take over from there.
In our existing drainage ordinance, there is reference to where stormwater studies and where we require stormwater. And it specifically references industrial facility. There's no definition that defines it. So we're adding an industrial facility definition that describes heavy industry in that we don't require stormwater on industrial sites. We are having development occur in industrially zoned properties that don't meet the industrial facility definition, and we want to make sure that those facilities are providing stormwater. On the other side of that coin, our mixed-use zoning category includes a term that says light industry. But once again, we don't have a definition that defines what that is. So what we've done is created a definition for light industry that really only occurs in mixed use. We're currently in the process of talking with the Ascension Economic Development Corporation about creating a light, a medium, and a heavy industrial category and figuring out how those three are different and where they would occur in the parish, and that's something we're going to be working on in the upcoming months. But for right now, we're just trying to clarify in our development code, industrial facility, light, and heavy industry.
Very good.
Something you need to consider in there, and it's considered a light industry, but it's very bad about polluting, is galvanizing plants. They don't have to be very big, and they can sure pollute a lot.
So I would respectfully need a motion and a second to hold a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Barre, seconded by Commissioner Barrow to have a public hearing next month to discuss the drainage ordinance and its industrial issues. And any opposition? Motion carries.
And last, our meeting is on the 25th, is that right? The 25th of
25th, Lance?
at 8 o'clock.
All right. 8 o'clock.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 25th. Mine's the 25th, yours is the 28th. Fine.
All right. Very good. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion. We are adjourned.